The Charge of the Heavy Brigade at Balaclava, October 25th, 1854, by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Read for LibriVox.org by Martin Geeson, in Hazelmere, Surrey. The charge of the gallant 300, the Heavy Brigade. Down the hill, thousands of Russians, thousands of horsemen drew to the valley and stayed. For Scarlet and Scarlet's 300 were riding by when the points of the Russian lances arose in the sky, and he called, "Left wheel into line," and they wheeled and obeyed. Then he looked at the host that had halted, he knew not why, and he turned half round, and he bade his trumpeter sound to the charge, and he rode on ahead as he waved his blade to the gallant 300, whose glory will never die. Follow! And up the hill, followed the Heavy Brigade. The trumpet, the gallop, the charge, and the might of the fight. Thousands of horsemen had gathered there on the height, with a wing pushed out to the left, and a wing to the right, and who shall escape if they close? But he dashed up alone through the great grey slope of men, swayed his sabre, and held his own like an Englishman, there and then. All in a moment followed with force, three that were next in their fiery course, wedged themselves in between horse and horse, fought for their lives in the narrow gap they had made, four amid thousands, and up the hill, galloped the gallant 300, the Heavy Brigade. Fell like a cannon shot, burst like a thunderbolt, crashed like a hurricane, broke through the mass from below, drove through the midst of the foe, plunged up and down, to and fro, rode flashing blow upon blow, brave Inniskillins and Greys, whirling their sabres in circles of light, and some of us, all in amaze, who were held for a while from the fight, and were only standing at gaze, when the dark muffled Russian crowd folded its wings from the left and the right, and rolled them around like a cloud. Oh, mad for the charge and the battle were we, when our own good redcoats sank from sight, like drops of blood in a dark grey sea. And we turned to each other, whispering, all dismayed, "Lost are the gallant 300 of Scarlet's Brigade." Lost, one and all, were the words muttered in our dismay. But they rode like victors and lords through the forest of lances and swords, in the heart of the Russian hordes. They rode, or they stood at bay, struck with the sword hand and slew, down with the bridle hand drew the foe from the saddle and threw under foot there in the fray, ranged like a storm, or stood like a rock in the wave of a stormy day, till suddenly shock upon shock staggered the mass from without, drove it in wild disarray. For our men galloped up with a cheer and a shout, and the foemen surged and wavered and reeled, up the hill, out of the field, and over the brow and away. Glory to each and to all, and the charge that they made. Glory to all the 300, and all the brigade. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.